Today, I want to talk about a lie that Blizzard has been spreading for nearly a decade: the WoW token, and how it combats the real world trading problem in WoW. In reality, the WoW token was never going to fix real world trading. In fact, not only is it completely incapable of doing so, it actually makes the problem worse. And this isn't a problem exclusive to WoW either. It affects every MMO that implements such a system. So I want to discuss the broader implications of these systems. To begin, let's go over what the WoW token is and how it was supposed to work. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the WoW token was introduced back in Warlords of Draenor to help combat the gold sellers. The idea was that a player could purchase a month of game time in the form of the token and sell it to another player for in-game gold. What was supposed to happen was that all the players who bought gold through less than official means would instead buy the token with their hard-earned money and sell that for gold instead, thus pulling all the customers away from the black market and killing it off in the process. After all, if they could buy gold legally, why would they buy it from the risky third parties? But that never happened. Why was that? There are a few moving parts that completely break this intended effect of the system, so I'll try to explain them as simply and coherently as I can. The first of which is the value of time. As a surprise to no one, pretty much everyone values their time. Many of us even put a dollar amount on it, as we work jobs where we essentially sell hours of our time for money. Another thing that can consume time is farming gold in WoW. So, through the transfer of time, you can put a dollar value on gold. Where this plays into the WoW token is in the player spending gold to buy game time. Now, the average player like you or I can only spend so much time farming gold to try and pay for a subscription. So if the WoW token were to rise above a certain point, it would no longer be worth buying, as it would be so much faster to just work a few hours at our jobs and pay for the sub outright. Now, it will always be more time efficient to work a job, because if it wasn't, then more people would farm gold to buy tokens, and the more people that farm gold, the more inflated the price of the token gets as demand outpaces supply, thus increasing the time required to acquire one. But the convenience of spending some leftover gold here and there instead of our hard-earned dollars can still be appealing, which is why people still buy it. Which brings us to the next part of the problem, which is bot farms and to a lesser extent, gold farmers from less wealthy countries. Things change a little bit here. Mainly, the dollar value of time. For a bot farm or foreign gold farmer, the dollar value of time is substantially lower than the average player. A person running a dozen bots that they don't have to interact with very often really only has to pay for a negligible amount of electricity on top of their WoW subs. And for the gold farmers, the cost of living is usually significantly lower than in a country like the US. This lowers the cost of gold from these sources, and because of this, it will always be cheaper to buy gold from a third party than the WoW token. This is the same concept that led to many jobs being shipped overseas to cut costs. Let me give an example, and I'm going to use example numbers to make things simpler to understand, so don't worry too much about the actual numbers used here. Let's say we have two players. Player A lives in the US, and player B lives in a less developed country. Both players can earn, let's say, 1,000 gold an hour. And the WoW token costs 10,000 gold. Again, just using these numbers for simplicity, don't get too hung up on them. So effectively, it would take 10 hours to farm enough gold to buy one token, and one token costs $20, meaning $2 per hour of farming. For player A, this is a pretty insubstantial value for the time required, so they'll probably not go out of their way to farm it, and instead just buy a token every once in a while from the passive gold they accumulate. But for player B, $20 is a good chunk of change. Maybe that's all they need to feed their family for a week. But they can't feed their family with game time. So instead of buying a token, they decide to sell their 10,000 gold for $5 on the black market, meaning they need to farm for 40 hours to feed their family for the week. Compared to player A, this is a much better value for the time investment. And it's a pretty similar scenario for the bot farm. If they can run enough bots to farm enough gold, it can pay all their living expenses as well. And this consumes very little of their actual time in the process. But if everyone started buying legal gold instead of black market gold, the demand for illegal gold should have dried up, right? Wouldn't all the gold buyers want to buy it through the approved methods instead? Well, I'm sure they would, but as I explained, they will always get a better value out of the black market. Their hard-earned money will get them more gold this way. Before the token was introduced, you could roughly split the player base into two groups: those who didn't buy gold and those that did buy gold, albeit illegally. When the token launched, the idea was that all the gold buyers would just start buying legal gold, and the non-gold buyers would stay the same. But what actually happened was the player base got split into three groups: players who don't buy gold, players who buy gold legally, and players who buy gold illegally. Some of the players who didn't buy gold before started buying it legally, because maybe that was the only thing holding them back before. And while I'm sure some of the illegal buyers started buying legally, the value lost in doing so probably left most of them where they were. Which brings us to the part where the token actually made things worse. You see, it's always the first purchase that's the hardest. Once a player starts buying gold, it gets easier each time after that. And maybe a player that didn't start buying gold until the token launched got so used to it that they saw the greater value of black market gold and decided to spend their money there instead. The very existence of the token makes it easier for non-gold buyers to transition into illegal gold buyers. This is the same psychology used in mobile games to further monetize the players. But in this case, it drives players to third-party sellers instead of the in-game shop, making the WoW token antithetical to its intended purpose. But it actually gets worse than that. Let's go back to the example where the token costs 10,000 gold, or 10 hours of farming. If player A decides to instead buy the gold illegally for $5, they could then turn around and spend that gold on a WoW token, effectively reducing the cost of their subscription to $5 a month. And for player B, the $15 base subscription is pretty expensive. That could feed their family for 3 weeks after all. So instead, they could just use some of the gold they farmed to buy the WoW token as well, which, as we described earlier, only costs $5 worth of gold to them, thus reducing their costs of operation and increasing their profits. That's right. You actually get rewarded with a cheaper subscription for interacting with the black market gold sellers. But I'm sure some people are thinking, Blizzard will just ban all the bots, gold sellers, and illegal gold buyers and everything will work itself out. But if that were the case, then why would they even need the WoW token at all? If Blizzard simply enforced their terms of service, they never would have needed to implement this placebo of a system. The WoW token was never actually intended to reduce real-world trading, because it can't. Blizzard just saw the money people were spending on third-party sites and thought, I want that money. Then they covered it up with the lie that it was needed to reduce bots and gold farming. Like I said earlier, this isn't exclusive to WoW either. Other MMOs have tried this failing strategy even before Blizzard did. RuneScape launched Bonds, their equivalent to the token, a full 2 years before WoW did, and that game is still infested with bots and gold sellers to this very day. I'm sure many of you have even heard of the Venezuelans that were making more money selling RuneScape gold than they could working any job in their area. At the end of the day, the idea that this type of system reduces real-world trading at all is completely laughable. It has not, will not, and cannot ever do that, and every argument to the contrary is simply perpetuating an obvious lie that has existed for at least a decade. Now, I'm not here to say that the system is evil and that you should boycott it. I just want to call out game studios when they straight up lie to their customers. Just admit that you wanted a cut of the gold selling market and move on. It's not like gold has any real value anymore anyways, as just about everything has moved over to other untradeable currencies. The only reason it still serves any function at all is because of repairs and player trading these days. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about this subject. Hope you enjoyed the video, and have a nice day.